Chapter 2. The Steps of a Good Man. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Psalm 37:23. Mike started with God's way this time and followed his explicit instructions from day to day. Mike needed only to be alone with the Lord long enough for him to hear his voice and follow what he told him. During this season, Mike spent many hours alone in prayer, sometimes praying the entire night. Each day he would ask, "What do you want me to do today?" Then he would allow his steps to be ordered by the Lord and go out on whatever errand he sent him. Hundreds of visits were made to various public officials, to people who would pray for this project, and to people who would help financially. In addition to his personal time with the Lord, Mike also spent much time in prayer with other men for this project. Every Monday evening, he attended a prayer meeting held in the basement of the Beanery, a small school store across the street from a high school. These prayer meetings were attended by 2 or 3 men and often would continue the entire night. On Tuesday evenings, he frequently attended a prayer meeting in downtown Seattle, directed by Axel Friedin. These men helped to bear the burden with Mike and were of great encouragement to him. Approximately 6 months after the time of receiving the first refusal, the county commissioners held another hearing in their offices, which was spring of 1949. They had not been able to decide who should have Old Furland. Many people had endeavored to obtain it. Large sums of money had been offered. However, the commissioners faced some very real problems about the matter. The Furland property originally had been given to the city of Seattle as a gift to be used for tuberculosis purposes. The city of Seattle, in turn, had given the property to the county with the stipulation that it must be used for tuberculosis purposes only. Otherwise, if the land were ever to be used for other objectives, Furland should be sold and the money gained used for the work at New Furland, which had moved to the old Naval Hospital after the war was over. The name of Furland was continued for the new location. However, the Furland administration was not sure if this was a permanent move, thinking perhaps they might wish to move back to Old Furland at some future date. Until a firm decision was made, the county commissioners were prohibited from selling the institution. The commissioners gave Mike an opportunity to speak at this hearing. He told the story of how God had called him out of business to combat juvenile delinquency through Christianity, and that we were ministering to over 1,500 young people in club meetings held in homes each week. He told of the boys and girls we had come in contact with who were from broken homes and needed more than just a weekly club meeting. He told them we felt if we could be at the head of the stream, we could save these young people from falling into trouble, and in this way we would save the county thousands of dollars. Again, the Lord showed himself faithful to order Mike's every step, because as he explained all this and read them the Jeremiah promise, they saw his sincerity. We lived from day to day in great expectancy. We thought that the Lord was going to deliver Old Furland to us at any time. Mike was so sure of it, he felt he was already living there. He greatly embarrassed me one evening at a prayer meeting by giving a testimony in which he thanked the Lord for the privilege of living at King's Garden. After the service, people came to us and asked, "Is it true that you are living at King's Garden?" It was only then that Mike realized what he had said in his testimony. He had to admit he was not really living at King's Garden, but his heart certainly was. Since we had promised the Lord our home, we put it up for sale that spring. We asked God to control the time of selling so that we would not be left without a place to live. No one even came to look at it until July, when a buyer came. We felt that God was testing our faith to see if we were willing to step out and trust Him explicitly in the matter of leasing Furland. We signed the papers to sell our home, and now we only had 30 days before we had to move. One day, Mike paid a visit to the man who was a member of the Tuberculosis Board of Managers. He asked Mike how he planned to finance the work. When Mike told him, "The Lord will provide," he demanded proof. He asked that Mike bring him the equivalent of $30,000, today's value approximately $375,000, either in cash, bonds, or deeds to properties, and put it on his desk on Friday morning. Since this was a Wednesday, it became an intense test of Mike's faith. Axel Friedin was with Mike that morning, and together they went into a restaurant and ordered cups of coffee. Then they prayed. Lord, if the lease of Old Verland is to be a reality, it will be necessary to bring down $30,000 to prove that we can handle the finances. We desperately need your help. There had been several people who had indicated an interest in our project. They had told Mike that when a lease would be forthcoming, they would be willing to invest some capital in the King's Garden. After prayer, the men separated and Mike began to call on those people. The favor of God was on Mike because by Thursday evening, Mike had $22,000 in checks, bonds, and deeds. This left $8,000 still to be secured, and time was running out. God brought to Mike's memory a couple who lived on an island. They had mentioned some time before that they were interested and desired to invest some money when it was needed. Mike called them long distance that evening. This, in substance, is what the lady told him on the phone in answer to Mike's query. Yes, Mike, we are interested in helping, and we had thought of putting $5,000 into the project, but the Lord seems to be indicating that it should be $8,000 instead. Mike then told her this was just the amount he still needed, and that it was necessary to have it by the next morning, so they sent the necessary papers over post haste by special messenger. Friday morning, Mike went down and slid these assets across the board member's desk. To Mike's surprise, the man slid them right back, saying, "I just wanted to make sure you could handle such a large undertaking. You don't need to leave the assets with me." To make this matter still more amazing, just a few days later, one man who had contributed $5,000 wrote and asked for his money back, saying he still needed it. One by one, for one reason or another, the others asked for a return of their investment. When the time came for us to move to King's Garden, our assets were only the original $1,500, which had come in through small contributions as the result of the circular letter. Even the money from the sale of our home, which was to be largely used in the project, was not forthcoming until sometime in November. After selling our home, Mike went to the commissioners and asked if we might not go out to Furland and start cleaning while they were considering what to do. They gave their permission for us to go out at our own risk to mow the lawns and start cleaning the buildings. However, they really did not intend for us to physically move out there, but only to work there in the daytime. Not fully comprehending this, however, Mike took it as permission to move our family to King's Garden. The Lord dealt much with my own heart in those days, for I faced the future with much fear. I began to think how terrible it would be if no one came to help us with the work. Immediately, the Lord asked me, "Are you willing to move out alone with your family, even if no one else comes?" Before I received peace on this matter, I had to promise the Lord that I was willing to move out there all alone, if that was His will. It was of great concern to me, though, for I knew I would be afraid to be in the administration building all alone when Mike was gone so often in the evenings. I spent much time, too, wondering, what will we do with all that space? I remember telling Mike I thought we could make use of half of the administration building, but whatever would we do with all the rest? I had no vision at all of the great task ahead of us and what King's Garden was fully to become. Over time, however, my trust in the promise that every single one of my steps, Mike's steps, and the entire ministry of King's Garden would be ordered by the Lord grew deeper and deeper. If God Himself is ordering these steps, what is there to fear? How thankful I am that God leads us gently, step by step, and does not give us more than we can handle at one time.